Today we are catching up with Kyle Howerton. Kyle graduated, I believe, in 2004 from Marion
Yeah.
High School. And so he and I were just chatting before we started recording. And I honestly have not kept up very well with Kyle. So I, too, am very excited to hear about his career journey. So I'd like to just start, Kyle, by thanking you for joining us today. And if you wouldn't mind, just to share a little bit about your high school experience here at Marion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks very much for reaching out. So I, as you said, graduated in 2004, and I hadn't really done the math until a couple days ago when I was trying to prepare for this call, and I was like, oh gosh, it's been 16 years since I graduated, and that was a little bit surreal for me to think about. So yeah, it's been a little while, but it's still relatively fresh in my mind. I had a great experience at MHS. I think overall, what I remember most, and hopefully we can talk a little bit about this later, but is my friends, and then outside of school activities, also extracurriculars, but I wasn't super active. I really just focused on golf. So
you were on the golf team
all
with
4 years, yeah.
Mr. Stout?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Well, so Coach North first, and then Mr. Stout. Yeah, that's right.
I contend without fail that the kids that are on the golf team are always some of the funniest kids. Like I always get some of the best laughs. I don't know what it is. I don't know where the sense of humor comes from. I don't know if it's all that time you spend out on the course, like,
Right. Yeah.
but the golfers are always so much fun.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with you 100%. Whenever I think back about it, like whenever I was an underclassman, it was hilarious. All of the upperclassmen were so funny. And then whenever I was an upperclassman, I feel like the lowerclassmen were so funny. So I agree. Like everybody was just kind of having a good time, and we hope to do really well. But at the end of the day, we had fun. So
yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
So from graduation, if you wouldn't mind to kind of walk my students through your career path and what that's looked like for you to where you are and what you're doing today.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a relatively unique career path. So hope you have some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, just to take a step back, I was not one of those people that really focused on, which I think this is also a good takeaway, but I wasn't somebody who was super focused on the next step, going to college and which college I was going to go to. I kind of had this template in my mind that I think is really common in Marion, which is, and maybe not anymore, but it was John A, it's a great education and it's a great value. And so we'll start there and then go to SIU. And then I always thought that I would be a policeman. I come from a law enforcement background and a public service background. My mom's a social worker at the VA, and she's going to retire soon, but still there. So, I ultimately followed my high school sweetheart to St. Louis. So she went to St. Louis College of Pharmacy, and then I applied to only one school, and that was St. Louis University. And I got in by the skin of my teeth because I had reasonably good grades, but my test score, the ACT score, wasn't super strong. And really, at that point, I realized I should have focused much more in high school on education. And so I went to SLU. I had a great time. That's really where I first realized that networking is a real thing, and that it is very important and valuable to network and know as many people as possible. And then when I was in university, I was focused on law enforcement, and so I interned with the Secret Service, and that was ultimately the goal that I had. And I joined the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, so the City of St. Louis Police Department. Immediately upon graduation, I worked there for a couple years, and then my now wife relocated to New York. And after a couple months of being in St. Louis without her, I was like, you're only young once, right? So let's do this. So I moved, I took the first job that I could get. So I went from being a policeman in the city of St. Louis to being a salesperson for a medical device manufacturer in Hartford, Connecticut. And that was both culture shock of New England culture. They're kind of insulated, as well as just new geography and living and working out of my home, and I knew nobody. So I did that for a couple of years and then moved to the city, moved to Manhattan. And I was kind of lost at that point because I never really wanted to be a salesperson. I kind of just took that job so that I could relocate to be closer to my now wife. And so I needed to figure out what I was going to do. And so I think that's another kind of lesson for high schoolers today. Is like, you don't have to know what you're going to do. And you can always find what you're going to do later whenever you start to realize what your passion really is. Because I think that if you're going to be successful in life and at work, then you should be passionate about it and really enjoy it. And I don't wake up every day thinking like, oh, I got to get out of bed and go to work. It's like, let's get this done. Let's, help people out, create some value. So I started, back to the story, I started noticing a lot of men that were wearing suits and looked really important. And I was like, what are those guys? And I started to realize these were like a bunch of finance guys, and I thought like, I want to be one of those important finance guys. And so then I realized that my undergrad education was in political science with a minor in philosophy, which was really great for critical thinking and writing skills, things like that. But I had no business skills. And so I knew that to be a career changer, I needed to take another step. And so I took an investment banking certificate program through NYU in New York. And then I used that to get into Fordham University's MBA program. And so I did 2-year MBA program, and I skipped the summer internship and took a big risk there. Went to school through the summer, graduated in December, got a job in Los Angeles, which is where we are now. And we've been here for 6 years. My current position is Senior Vice President with a real estate investment banking firm called George Smith Partners.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, wow. Yes. I've talked to students who are in different time frames. Like I've talked to some students that just graduated from college, and then I've talked to some that have been out for 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's so neat to see consistently the messages, things don't usually go from point A to point B in a direct line, and that's okay.
That's right.
So share with my students a little bit about what you would do on a normal day when we're not sheltering in place. Like, what does a person in your field do?
Yeah. Well, and sorry to hijack, but I remember sitting in my senior year English class thinking, hearing some of the girls that were sitting around me say like, we're really excited to get out of Marion and go to college. And I remember sitting there thinking, not me. Like, I just want to hunt, and I want to play golf, and I want to hang out and have, enjoy my life. And so it's very interesting to find myself in Los Angeles today when I never really thought that I was going to leave my hometown. Again, life can take interesting paths, and I think that's really fun. And you should just let it take you where you're going to go. So a typical day is I get into the office around 8:30. I probably start making calls before then. A typical day would last maybe 10 to 12 hours for me, but get into the office, start making phone calls. As a senior vice president, we're really running deals. So at George Smith Partners, or GSP, we are a real estate capital markets advisory firm, which means that for more middle market transactions or institutional transactions, we on the real estate side, so probably projects $5 to $10 million in value and up, we help real estate developers and owners access money. So we help them access the debt markets, so loans, and we access the equity markets, so joint venture equity partners. And the largest project that I've worked on was a $180 million project. The smallest one I've worked on was $1 million. So, but a typical day is making sure that nothing is going to fall apart. So we're transaction oriented, and it's a lot of pressure, but I find that pressure to be very fun. So really my day consists of helping to underwrite a deal, which means that we're taking all of the cash flows that the sponsor sends to us, or the borrower or client sends to us, and we put it into an Excel model, and we run the cash flows and make sure what the bottom line number is of net operating income, and then we figure out what sort of value we can create for our client through debt and or equity. And so we're managing that like basic deal running process of underwriting, and then managing the client's expectations of, are their expectations realistic? What are their needs? And so, and then also working with our capital providers, so lenders and equity investors. So I'm managing the client relationship, the equity investor or lender relationship, as well as making sure that nothing's going to fall apart, and that we're doing the right thing with underwriting and sizing our projects correctly, if
Wow.
that makes sense.
So, so when you were working on your MBA, was this kind of the industry that you thought you wanted to be in, or was it one of those things that you started looking and, which way did it go? Did you seek this out, or did it kind of seek you out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I went to the MBA program thinking that I wanted to be a corporate finance investment banker. So the traditional concept of investment banker, like mergers and acquisitions, capital markets advisory, but for companies, for operating businesses. And it was, I think, my second, Fordham's on a trimester system. So I think it was either my second or my third trimester where I took a real estate finance course. And the bug bit me ever since then. I remember sitting in class thinking like, this is pretty easy. And it is really fun and interesting. It's something that's tangible. Everybody lives in real estate. Your house or apartment or anything, we go to school in real estate, we work in real estate. And so there are lots of ways to create value in that. And I think that is what is most interesting, is that you can actually see it. And so I took this real estate finance course, and ever since then, real estate has been my thing from morning to night. And it's, if you talk to my wife, it's a problem, but, yeah. Yeah. So it kind of, I suppose it found me, but also I was really happy that I found it,
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
so what skill sets are important for someone in your profession? Or what are the things that help someone advance if they're interested in this industry?
Yeah, so skill sets would certainly be analytical, critical thinking skills, and writing skills. Although I work with numbers primarily, writing is the number one thing. So I helped run our internship program, our recruiting program at the firm, and the biggest thing is if there's a resume with mistakes on it, even one grammatical or spelling error or formatting error, you can survive that, but it's pretty difficult too, because attention to detail is key. So I think writing, critical thinking, attention to detail, those are really the most important items. And you can learn everything else, but you need to be motivated to understand how to think analytically and also pay a lot of attention to detail.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's important to know. And continually, I hear that, you can gain those technical skills. They can be taught
Right.
if you have the right attitude and you're willing to
That's
learn.
right.
That makes the difference.
Yeah.
So I love that you're reinforcing that message for my students.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times in high school, students maybe, even in college, you have to take classes that you aren't necessarily interested in,
Right.
kind of in them. But when you find what you love or what you're interested in, you don't seem to mind, to continue learning. I'm sure you didn't just, graduate with your MBA and say, well, I'm done. I know everything I need to know.
That's
That's a
right.
continual process.
Yeah. That's right. Graduating from the MBA program gave me the basic foundation of business, of accounting, of finance, of critical path items, things like that, management skills. But it really wasn't until I got to the office on the first day that I started truly learning the business that I'm in now. And we called it drinking from a fire hose. So I remember this went on for weeks, but especially the first couple of days, I wasn't working tremendously long hours. They were long hours, sure, it was 10, 11 hours, but it wasn't anything insane. And I got home and I pulled my keys out of my pocket and I dropped them out of my hand. I picked them up. I tried to put them in the hole and I couldn't get it at first. And it was because I was mentally exhausted. I was just so exhausted of all of this knowledge or information coming onto me, and I was trying to absorb it as quickly as possible. And so that's a great point. Education is going to give you great skill sets. It's going to help you open doors. It's going to help you network if you utilize that to your advantage. But then whenever you get onto a very technical job, that's really where you start to learn those technical skills. Yeah.
Very, very good. So, if you were to talk to my students, which we're going to share this video with them, but if you were in my class, or if you could go back and talk to Kyle as a junior or senior in high school, what are the things that are important for them to know? What are the takeaways you would like for them to have from this session?
Yeah. So I think that, and again, this ties back to the fact that I also assist our hiring process for interns and analysts. Is that one of the most important things is that what is put on the internet or social media can last forever, and so be very careful about what you put online or in Instagram or Snapchat or anything, because you'll be surprised what people can find, and it lasts pretty much forever. So that's like the first big like dad note to them, like just be careful.
I'm so glad you said that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Just really be careful. You think that it's just a fleeting thing, but it can last forever. So, there's that. And then also just um, try to slowly determine what your passion is. And you can start at a very high level of what you're really interested in, and then kind of explore multiple paths from that point on, and just realize that hard work and dedication and passion are what going to help you be successful in life. And you're going to run into a lot of hardships, and my life certainly hasn't been easy. It hasn't been the most difficult life either, but like everybody runs into roadblocks, and even if it doesn't look like that, it's maintaining the motivation and the hard work ethic and everything that keeps you going and helps you be successful. And people, they should also know that it's not an overnight thing. It takes time. And so if you have a great work ethic, and if you have a great attitude, and you're passionate about what you're doing, and you're eager to learn, you will be successful. I don't care what you're doing. If you're a plumber, you're going to be successful. If you're a fireman, you'll be successful in that. And if you're a physician or an attorney or a banker like me, you'll be successful. So, yeah.
Very, very good advice.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. I know my students are going to enjoy this discussion, and I cannot thank you enough for taking time to share with them today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. This was great.
The next time you happen to come back through Marion to see your mama, you let me know, and I will get you in class.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll do a live session. That would be really great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would love to do that. I basically have two jobs beyond George Smith. We also develop some real estate. We develop that in St. Louis. We also do some of that in Marion. And so, I would be happy to talk to them about that and my other career path. So it would be great. Thank you very much for reaching out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.